everyone, and I came in at the right time because I often teach a class on your background and what your background says about you. And if you
Wow.
are going to use a virtual background like I have, make sure it says the right thing. Of course, this is one that I designed. So this is a parade home house I designed. So I use it often because it always starts a conversation. But
Uh-huh.
yes, Sharon, you're so right. Your background, your lighting,
Mm-hmm.
um, it makes a big difference. And I'm
Oh
in a
yeah.
room that I have to constantly play with my lighting before I come on, and I didn't get a
Uh-huh.
chance. But y'all will forgive me this time, I know. Good to see everybody. Good to see. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about all of them, to be honest. But this one is just we're right here at the end. And so I'm glad to see Laura, Sharon, Carlita, Thomas, Holly, Janice, Catherine, Karina, and I know we have a few more that will join us shortly. And then we also do the replay. So to everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's no, y'all have been chatting away. I was on another call and I was trying to finish that one up. And so let's get started. Let's get started. We got some great stuff that's going on. And this is yeah, even during this pandemic, there's a lot going on, but we still rising above it. And so I'm just grateful for that. So make sure if you are a member that at 1 o'clock you stay on because we have our annual meeting to completely wrap things up for this board term. So we need all members to stay on, and I'll repeat that throughout. The next wonderful thing is always check your emails. There's always something going on, and we want to make sure that you're in touch. I don't see anybody that's not a member. So for those that watch the replay, if you're not a member, you definitely want to join this wonderful group of, I can't even say just women anymore because we
Tom.
have some awesome Nabros. Tom and Johnny, they keep us on our toes and they love hanging out with us. So good to see you, Tom. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to do some recognitions right quick, and then we're going to get on with the program. I want to recognize any service members. So you can raise your hand if you are a service member, previous service member, anyone at this time. All right, we don't see anybody. Public sector. I know we have one, and we got a couple of more that's going to attend. And Senator Sidney, I'm going to hold you we're going to do an introduction with you. So anybody else? I know we have another person that was supposed to join us. Okay. Corporate partners. Corporate partners, can you raise your hands for me? And here are our wonderful corporate partners, and they are phenomenal. We're doing a whole lot, and they have been there with us throughout this journey. Our next is our community partners. Our community partners, anyone in the audience for our community partners. We do work with SBA, we do work with Wait Tech. We also do work with several different community partners in the area, and we are really grateful for the work that we've been involved in with them. So thank you. Let me take care of that. Next, I've called out the members. Any special guests or any guests, I'll say that because we got a lot of special guests. Any guests? Not at this time. So for those that will listen to the recording, we welcome you and we are so glad to have you with us. At this time, I'm going to go back to my full screen. I'm having not let me see everybody today. Just switch there. Hey, AMG, can you tell me if Holly is on? I mean, if Emily is on yet? My screen is doing something over here.
Yeah, she hasn't jumped on yet. She says she's wrapping up a call and then she'll be on shortly.
Okay, I will go ahead. And so just to introduce to some, and for those that already know, I would like at this time to introduce our board. Here we go. I am president, soon to be immediate past president. Our president-elect is Miss Emily Parks. Our treasurer is Jess McLam. Our secretary is Shauna Williams. Our immediate past president is Olala Njingo. Our public policy is Karina Lemons. Our professional development, Janice Cutler. Janice, you want to share anything about your next event or anything else you want to add on professional development?
I think I will add about the community partners, resources available to our members that we can connect members to would be the Women's Business Center. And I don't know if you mentioned the SBA. They've been a very big help to us this year.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Next is membership. Carlitha Ward. Carlitha, you want to share a little bit about membership?
No, I think you said it all. We are still excited about NAWBO and what NAWBO is doing in the greater Raleigh area. We encourage as many women business owners as possible to come and check us out, see what's going on with us, attend some of our sessions. Just go to NAWBO Greater Raleigh and find out, click on the events tab, see what we've got going on. And we hope that you will see something in that that will say, yes, that's where I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of that group. You can certainly reach out to me, membership director. You can leave a message, I believe, through the website. But we are excited about women business owners. We're excited about NAWBROs, our brothers who would like to be a part of our organization as well. So we're, even though we're winding down this current NAWBO year, NAWBO continues through the year. And so we encourage as many people as are interested to check us out and see if we don't provide something that can connect with you and your business growth and development.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. We also have our corporate partners, directors. We have Holly Van Apeldoorn and we have Catherine Burnett, and they have been really working a lot behind the scenes with bringing in our corporate partners. So we want to say thank you to them. And then our chapter ambassador, Miss Annette Taylor. I don't think she's on yet. So we are extremely grateful for the board and all the work they have done over the past year. We've done a lot of wonderful things. I want to step back for a second, and one of our past presidents is on the panel today. I always send emails to her or text to her and say, I'm the other Miss Hill. So Miss Sharon Hill is with us and she has been in my seat and she has served us in many different ways. And so we are absolutely grateful. I don't know why I'm stumbling over words today, but we're absolutely grateful to have her on the panel. That's the way you end out a year, is bring back those that have served NAWBO and served NAWBO very well. And I'll turn it over to, next will be Laura Yamanaka. You have served from a national, and we just want to say thank you for joining us for today. And this is everybody at this time, and we are really grateful. So I will introduce at this time, and Senator Sidney will give you a chance in a few minutes to say some words, because I definitely want you to share a little bit about all the work that you're doing. But I'm going to introduce our wonderful moderator, and we're so glad to have her as a member. It's Sharon Delaney McLeod, is an Emmy award-winning broadcaster. If you live in the Raleigh-Durham area, you know her, you've seen her face. And so we are grateful to have her. She's a TEDx speaker, a certified diversity executive, CDE. She's an agency owner. She's an Olympic torch bearer and author who helps leaders and teams improve communication and build resilience to drive business results. She has her own firm. She's doing a whole lot in the community. She's doing a whole lot, and I am delighted and I am beaming to have Sharon Delaney McLeod as our moderator. So Sharon, I hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much for the lovely, lovely introduction. And as an official newish member of NAWBO, I couldn't be more excited to be a part of this program today. I've been connected with NAWBO for many years as a guest attending a lot of your events, but now I'm finally really sinking my teeth into all the amazing things that you all do for women business owners and moving our goals and dreams forward. So thank you again for the opportunity to be able to moderate this discussion today. And wow, do we have some amazing panelists. And I'd like to just share a little bit about our panelists who are joining us today. We have Senator Sydney Batch, who is a family law attorney, child welfare advocate, a social worker. She has made it her life's work to support North Carolina families and bringing opportunity for everyone she touches. She was elected to the North Carolina House representing Wake County in 2018, and then later appointed to fill a position in the North Carolina Senate in 2021. And we are delighted to have you here with us today, Senator Batch. Also, as we just heard, Sharon Hill, our former president of our chapter here. Sharon is a well-known author, speaker, MBA. She spent many years as marketing manager at Fortune 500, IBM, which of course is in the news all the time these days as well. And as president of Sharon Hill International, Sharon is really busy working with all sorts of companies, focusing in on etiquette trainers and the American Business Etiquette Trainers Association. And she combines her passion for business etiquette, diversity in the workplace, and also organizational behavior. She's very connected in the community and continues to serve everyone she touches. And then also joining us is Laura Yamanaka. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, Laura. Good, good. Normally I do a check beforehand, and our conversation was so vibrant before we got started. I didn't want to interrupt, but we're delighted to have you joining us from the West Coast. So while it's lunch hour for us, it's breakfast for you. We're delighted you can be here with us. Laura is the president and one of the founders of Team CFO, a financial and accounting firm offering on-site customized CFO and controller services, or controller. And I've always wondered about how you properly say that. I was a communications major, so all the numbers is where I come to you. Controller, controller. What's the preference?
Controller. It's more relatable.
All right. Very good. Very good. But I know that as a woman business owner, that is the one big gap that I have had in all of my years as an entrepreneur, is not having the financial acumen to support what I've been doing. And so I really love to learn from the best of the best. And that would be you, Laura. You have been a dynamic professional in your area, helping companies with growth issues and turnaround operations. You've worked in the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector. And so we are delighted to have you joining us here in our panel discussion today, which I just love, because as women, we hold so many hats, we wear so many hats. It's almost like in our DNA to do things for everyone, and we're not always very good about delegating. And when we wear all of those hats, there is no way to wear the crown. There's no room for it. So today we're going to talk about how to trade in all those many, many hats to be able to wear the crown on working on the business instead of working in the business every day, because there's no way to help our teams and lead our teams and then lead growth for our businesses unless we can step out and work on the business instead of in it. So I, for one, I'm going to be taking mad notes from you three ladies today because I'm one of those type A personalities, and I sometimes am a bit of a control freak. And so if people don't do it the way I want it done, I stop asking and I just say, oh, well, I'll just do it myself. I can get it done the way I want it done and do it faster and maybe better. But then I'm losing the ability to grow the business when I just step in for everyone else. And it's doing a disservice to my team if I don't let them learn and grow and make the mistakes and learn from them. So I will start with each of you and would like to ask, what ways have you all traded in all those hats to be able to put on that crown and really work on your business? And I'd like to start with Senator Batch. How have you done that, maybe with your law firm or some of the other work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to see you all. So I think that part of my journey and trying to trade in a lot of hats came when I was elected to office. We have a part-time legislature, which is not part-time. It's supposed to be, but we basically are there Monday nights and then all the way through Thursday afternoon. So I have to basically run my business through on Mondays and Fridays. And of course, after I get home and I put my kids to bed. So when I when I won my election, I said, oh, wait, I have a lot on my plate and I don't know what I'm going to do. And even leading up to the election. And so at that point, I really started looking at how our business operates. My law partner is one of my law partners is my husband. The other is my best friend. So I can't get fired, which is great. But at the same time, like I still have payroll and I still have employees that we have to make sure every 2 weeks get paid. They like us, but they won't work for free. And so I needed to try and figure out how are we still going to grow the business when a lot of my time was going to be taken away. And in the first 9 months of serving in the General Assembly, I went from top billing in our office to bottom billing, and it's 6-figure difference, right? Ooh. I billed $120,000 less. So I said, this is not sustainable and we have to figure something out. So what I decided to do is really looked at, I do a lot of the HR, we have a very good division of roles here, but what I decided is that I had to stop very much, like you said, Sharon, type A's, most of us probably on this call are, I had to start giving a lot of my responsibilities that I would hold on to in the managing of my cases and my clients. And I had to bring in my associate attorneys. And so I started a new system where I had an associate attorney assigned to every single one of my cases, and that they would get to know my associate attorney, because at some point the associate attorney is probably going to have to take over that case or answer questions when I'm on the floor in the Senate. So I really had to re-envision, one, my value to the firm, because it was always one of those things where I was making the most and then I was making the least and I felt less valuable. So I had to get around the psyche of not feeling valuable and of an equal partner, and the guilt surrounding that. And I had to figure out how I was going to make it sustainable. So that's just one of the ways in which I had to trade in one of my control hats so that I could actually do the business of the work and still serve in the General Assembly.
That's wow. I wonder when you sleep.
Yeah, me too.
My goodness. Well, hats off to you, and put the crown on to all of that work.
Thank
Laura,
you.
I'd love to know, you worked for some of the biggest brands in the world, and your resume is just peppered, Price Waterhouse, GE, Shell, like all these huge companies that you've worked in that business and now leading your own business. How would you answer this question in making that transition to being an entrepreneur and running it yourself?
Well, I think it was a shock because I had grown up in the corporate world. And so, as we all know, when you start your own business, you don't have HR or legal or IT that you delegate out to, they handle it and it's fine. So I was very naive when I started out my own business, because I understood academically, theoretically what's needed, but I didn't know that I would have to do payroll myself, right? I always thought there was somebody, and that, if there's somebody, you have to pay them. And, you have to hire them because there's no HR or people taking care of that. So you have to figure out if they're any good at what they're doing in all of those areas, IT, which I never knew about. So it took me a long time, but I realized my job when I was delegating those hats, my real job was to learn how to delegate and find good people and determine they were good people on an ongoing basis in the job that they were doing, and not necessarily knowing about servers and capacity and all of that. So once I shifted off of trying to learn all the HR issues myself, because I was like you, Sharon, it's like, I'll just learn it myself because it's a lot faster than explaining to somebody. I know what I'm talking about, just do it. Of saying, okay, because people, hire people for life, unfortunately, sometimes, especially when they're good. My job and skill that I had to learn was how to find good people, how to determine they were good, how to create an environment where they could just do their job and me and other people wouldn't be kind of keeping them down. And then I could focus on running the company. And I said that in 5 minutes, and let me tell you, it took years before I really, once I understood what I had to do, and then actually doing it, because it went against my grain. So but hey, I'm saying anybody can learn, because I went from not knowing how to do any of those things other than picking up a phone and getting an email and getting support, to being able to do all these things. And I think as a small business owner, especially as you go through stages, that's what you need to do. You need to learn what you need initially, then how to bring the people around you. And you make mistakes all the time, and it's okay. Just don't make the same mistake again and again and again.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure that you, over the years, have hired that person that you thought was going to be the perfect person for this role, and then very quickly found out, oops, not a good move.
Every time.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
time.
So I'm sure you all have heard that term. And Sharon, I want to ask you, what is it? Hire slow, fire fast?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I would have to imagine in your corporate career at IBM and then transitioning to your own role. And then I see you're also now serving as a member of the Orange County Economic Development Advisory Board. So you're probably advising other business owners on the daily on how to do this. How have you made this transition from hats to the crown?
Well, like Laura, I spent much of my life in corporate America. So you're right. I had to make a strong change once I became a solopreneur. My story is different in terms of I don't have employees. It's just me. When I was in NAWBO, we called my business a leisure business. In other words, if I don't have a job, it's okay because I got money from IBM. Starting my business, here's how I got rid of a lot of those hats. Like Laura, I was used to everything being done because I could just say, do this, do this, do this. But when it's my business, only me, here's the mistakes I made here's the hats. Designing my own website. I don't know how to design a website. I'm going to design a website. Create my own business cards. I'm not a designer. I manage designers, but how hard can it be? Create my own flyers. Do my own marketing. Those were the hats that I just took on, and I did it poorly, as it turned out when I looked to see what my return on investment was. I had a big pot of money from IBM, and I spent it like a drunken sailor. I want to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Didn't have the answers at all. Those were my hats. Eventually, and because of NAWBO and folks that I met and loved in NAWBO, I learned how to not just delegate, but give that part of the business to somebody who knows what they're doing. A business coach, a marketing coach, a designer. Get rid of all that and focus on me, the product, the speaker, the trainer. Those hats were dragging me down, and I wasted so much money. My website was so bad, it looked like a chicken that put ink on its feet and walked across a page. It was horrible, horrible. I learned the hard way. No, I don't know it all. Give those hats away and pay for people who know what they're doing. That's what made the big difference for me, Sharon.
Yeah. And I appreciate your transparency and all of you showing the vulnerable part of it. And, that's what I think as business leaders. I know when I left a really nice salary at the TV station and walked away to start my own little something, I didn't have a clue. Same thing. I was a solopreneur initially, and then I got a partner, and we did what a lot of entrepreneurs probably do. The phone would ring and someone say, so do you do any media buying? Why, yes. And then we get off the phone and say, how do you do that? And we would Google, how do you what is media buying? What is, that's different than producing a story or a video. What the heck is media buying?
Yes.
But early on, we were afraid to say no to anything. We just needed revenue. So we said yes to all the things.
Yep.
And then we cobbled together the most misfit group of freelancers to try and deliver something that would make an impact and be successful to our clients. And wow, did we make some mistakes. But what we also realized, and I wonder from the three of you if you discovered this, along the way, wearing some of those hats, did you discover that you actually were good at maybe one or two of those things that you could have given away, but you realized I'm actually really good at this thing. So even though I'm working on the business, there still will be this one thing that I feel like I can still manage. I know for me, my very first job out of college was as an editor. I love to edit video. And as a news reporter, I did it for so long. It's so easy. And frankly, it's too slow for other people to do it. So that's the one thing that I hang on to that I still do for my own brand. So the next question I was going to ask is, can you trade in all the things for the crown, or do you still hold on to maybe that one thing that is that sweet spot in your skills? Senator Batch?
Yeah, and actually listening to all of you coming from corporate America and then trying to figure it out, I did it backwards where I just graduated from law school and just started out on my own. So I was figuring all of it out at once. So I guess the benefit, the silver lining is I didn't know how it was to actually have like this huge paycheck and then have to figure out how to get my my business going, et cetera. We were just hungry young kids starting and hanging our own shingle. So for those on the call who started out on your own, there are people like me too, who you're like, you just figure it out. I think for me, and it's not all exciting and sexy, but I keep the HR part for our office. We still have a pretty small office, but I also went into business because as a woman, I wanted to also be an active mom. And I wanted to make sure that the work environment that I was going to build within our firm was going to be that for everyone. And so I have not given up making sure that we have really good health insurance benefits for our employees. And so I'm the health insurance, person, the administrator, and find the best policy to pay 100% of it for our employees, right? Like I make sure that we are giving birthdays off, and I figure out holidays and the different events that we do in the office, because I really want to have an office, especially for women who are attorneys in firms that oftentimes do not get that flexibility to be present for their children and to be able to have it all. That I wanted to make sure that our office was creating that same really healthy, positive work environment, of which we've really built over 15 years to make sure that people want to stay here, and we want to make it more of a family setting. And so those things, the payroll, the salary, the management of personalities, et cetera, it's a lot of work, but I don't want to give that to a manager that doesn't necessarily have the same priorities that I want for all the people that work for me, because I think that that's a really important part of our dynamic in our office, and making sure that we're creating a work environment where people are really happy. And that in particular, and no offense to the men, but that the moms in our office feel like they can still be very present and take their kid, go to soccer games and leave early, so they don't miss out on all the stuff, that they can too have all the things that they want and still be a really active parent in their kids' lives.
I love that. Senator Batch, I feel like you owning the culture is what you've done. You've created an environment where I'm sure your retention is pretty high. I mean, who would want to leave that, particularly as a working mom? And so you've created what you needed for yourself and allowed that opportunity for others. And I love that you own that piece of it. That's wonderful.
Thank
Laura,
you.
what part have you held on to? I'm guessing it's the numbers piece. I don't know.
Actually, I also learned, because I think I've been in business quite a bit longer than a lot of you have. And I learned that the things I wanted to hold on to, and especially if you want to scale, I can't, right? I can't do. So there's some things like, Sharon, you said you're really good at, and you're really fast. And I'm really good and really fast at analysis, financial strat planning, but you only have so many hours in the day. And so if I retain all of that, my people, and it's a skill you have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to do. So if I would come in and take that over, my people aren't developing, which meant that I can't charge them out at a higher rate, right? I'm not passing it on. I'm also not spending my time where I should be, in other places. But it's hard because, every time you saw something, you go, God, they should have done this, 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 and I could have done this, this, this. And so I learned to be selective. Okay. So porpoise, I think the term is, in all of the areas where I'm not solely responsible for anything in my company, I guess, but I go in and I go out, and of course you're always there for the problems, right? So if anybody has a problem that they can't solve, eventually it percolates up to me. And then I go in and out, making sure things are people need help. They like the attention, working with a mentor or owner. It allows me to see where we are, because a lot of times, people think that we're really, really good and we're not, or we're really good except for this area. And then for me on this financial projection, strategic planning for my clients, it gets me a feel for where they really are. So I'm better to understand and anticipate the problems that they're going to have. And Sydney, thank you so much for doing that with your company, because one of the reasons why I started Team CFO many years ago was when I worked corporate 20 odd years ago, it was not very friendly to women. I mean, I don't know how many times I had a child and 3 days later I was back closing because GE did not consider, there's no GE people online who are like, whatever, great place to learn. But having a child was no excuse. You had to meet your deadline. And so there were a lot of things that I missed out with my kids growing up, that I said that if I can do something to change that culture, and I think it is being changed through people like you who are sending up, cultures where it is more family centric. We do it the same way. The idea was, we're saying, hey, this is what you need to get done. As long as the client's okay in the time frame, you do it whenever you want. Some people have to do it after 9 o'clock. Their kids go to bed. Sometimes, some people get up at 3. And so we found that it was actually a recruiting advantage. Who knew? Because then women who were and men, it was men too. Anybody who were very, very good, were willing to, frankly, I couldn't compete on benefits and everything else, but they'd come to work for us because they could make their own time. So I've given up all hats and none of them, to your point, Sharon.
Yeah.
Porpoising in and out, because ultimately it's always your responsibility to pick and choose.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sharon, I would love to know how you're doing this, since as a solopreneur, initially you were wearing all those hats and then found the right people to do those things for you. But what do you still hold on to or still dig into a little bit, maybe, that you haven't given up?
My answer might sound a little bit quirky, and that is I kept the ability to say yes to whatever came along, because my theory is say yes and figure it out later. Because I gave up all those hats of designing my website and blah, blah, blah. I'm supposed to be an etiquette trainer, right? Like you said, somebody would call you, ask me to do something. You think, I don't have a clue where to start. But I said yes. For example, North Carolina Central University called and asked me, could I help them with their strategic plan for one of the areas? Well, in IBM, I had people do the strategic plan, and I'd approve it or disapprove it. I think, I don't know where to begin. I said yes. And then I figured it out. Website, strategic plan, what do the letters stand for? What are the timelines, blah, 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 blah. And we did it. I got called by the county of Rowan County. Can you come and help us get rid of stop with the discipline problems that we're having? People aren't getting along. There's conflict. Can you help? Well, once again, from my IBM experience, I said yes, and put together a 2-hour program for that. Because I got rid of all the extraneous hats, and somebody calls and asks me, can you do, I automatically say yes. Of course, I double over with the stomach thing, how the heck am I gonna get this done? But they're gonna pay me, and I'm gonna figure this out. So what I've kept is the ability to still focus on me and focus on my business. I hope all of you heard of a book by Michael Gerber called The E Myth. The E stands for entrepreneur. What is the product? I am the product. My speaking is the product. My training is the product, not designing the website, not doing the cards, not doing the flyers. By sticking to the product, me, that's what I kept sharing as far as if they call me, I'm going to do it. Unless it's insane. But yes, I'm going to do it. And
Yeah,
if I
you know
can't
how to stay in your lane.
stay in my lane. And then I learned a great statement, never say no without offering an alternative. So if somebody asks me, can I do something? And I know it's totally out of space, I cannot. However, you should call Olala. However, you should call. So you don't leave them with a no. You never leave them with a no. So yes, I stay in my lane and it makes life very exciting. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you so much. I'd love to know, I mean, I think for all of us, the entire world, no exception, 2020 was a challenge that all of us faced, hands down. There's no getting around it. But aside from 2020, is there one challenge that you faced that has impacted your life, your family, that made you wake up and say, if I don't change what I'm doing right now, my family's going to suffer? And what did you do? What were the decisions you made? And I'm going to start this time with Laura.
Well, I kind of told the story already. When I look back and life as an entrepreneur is not easy, as we all know. And the only norm is that your day isn't going to go as planned, right, ladies and gentlemen? So I was trying to think about the really big issues, and to me, it was when I made the decision to quit corporate and start Team CFO. Like you, Sharon, and both Sharons actually, I left a big, nice, reliable, stable job with paycheck and nice benefits and nice bonuses. But I realized the price that I was paying was not just my personal time, but my family. So I was on the road 3 out of 4 months, or 3 out of 4 weeks a year. I used to do all the acquisition work for GE. And what made me choose to leave was I liked it too much. It was, look, it's a lot easier to go out on the road. You don't have to worry about dinner and cooking and groceries and childcare and dentist appointments. You just have to look good, go out, do your job. Everybody gives you kudos and fine. And the harder job was when I was home and having to take care of all of those items because, hey, you can't, So I think to me, that was the big decision to leave a career that I thought that I was going to be in forever, to take the risk of being an entrepreneur. And I will say, although there were times, and there are still times when you're going, I don't know why I did this, but the most part of it has been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done, right? For me, for my family, because it gave me the flexibility, and for the community. I mean, in corporate, I never had the ability to do other things. And I think that when you own your own business, you realize you're much part of a much larger community like NAWBO. And whatever organization you choose, of course, we all choose NAWBO because it's so important. You are making a difference every day, not only doing what your work is, but making a difference for your daughters and your nieces and the people who come after you. And also we're honoring the work of the women who came before us in NAWBO. Like, there are people who are still alive in NAWBO who work to get us credit cards. I mean, is that shocking or not? I still can't believe it. So we've done a lot, and there's a lot more left to do. And so I applaud everybody who's joined NAWBO, who joins the fight. And actually, more importantly, Sharon's and we have a good time doing it. It's fun. NAWBO people know how to party and get things done. Right, Fenella? So that was my leaving corporate.
Sure. Sharon, for you, would love to know, was the leaving of IBM, or was there some other life event that truly challenged your family that made you take stock of where you stood at that moment?
Thank you, Sharon. I thought long and hard about how I want to answer this question, and I'm going to get extremely personal. And if I can help one member on this call today change her life, one member, I'll consider what I'm about to tell you as the right thing to do. My previous husband did not support me in anything I wanted to do. This is when I was with IBM. If I wanted to start a side business or anything. You've heard of mental cruelty, physical cruelty. It really, really just, he was a lawyer. And I'm with IBM. You think we have the world. You see our house, you see our cars, everything looks fabulous and glorious. But inside that house, I didn't realize until it was too late, this man is crazy. I had to get away. And that's the point in which I said, if I don't get away, not so much family, I have no kids, it's just me. However, for my own safety, I have to get away. Best move I ever made, because in getting away, I now have a husband who supports me in everything I do. Any businesses I've started, we're talking about my speaking business, I've started 2 other businesses. Some good, some not good, but still he supported me in everything I did. My message is, if you're trying to start your own business and you have a partner who does not support you, get away. Mentally, you will get sick. I developed fibrous tumors. I developed high blood pressure, all because I let someone dominate me, thinking the world mustn't know what's really going inside this beautiful house. They must not know. If this is happening to you, get away. That's my message.
Sharon, thank you for opening up and being vulnerable to us. Such an important thing, and thank you. And I hope that we can all support one another in that effort. And if it's something that's a secret, hopefully you have a trusted friend here at NABO that could maybe help show you the way, and maybe Sharon's that person. So thank you. Senator Batch, is there a thing that happened besides getting elected? I'm sure there's other things too.
Yeah, no, 2018 was a special year. Before I say that, Sharon, thank you for sharing what you said. I represent a lot of victims of domestic violence. And they, I've had women who've come to me, and I've represented men that are victims as well. So let's be clear, men are also victims, but disproportionately, right? It's women. And I've had the women come to my office and meet year after year and finally are ready to leave, right? So thank you for sharing that, because everyone thinks about domestic violence being physical, but the emotional scars and the damage that's left because of the emotional abuse, the financial control, and everything else is what we don't talk about enough in society. So I really appreciate you sharing that experience and telling people that, there's light. I tell people all the time, getting divorced is hard, being divorced is not. So it's just you having to get through that process and then get to the other side so you can certainly live your best life. For me, 2018 was a very special year. I decided to run for office. And while I was actually campaigning, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was what woke me up. I was diagnosed. So my kids were 5 and 7. I got diagnosed in August, so I was under 40. So of course there was all of these different risks. Didn't think, first mammogram came back and they were like, oh, by the way, let's talk about, you need to have a mastectomy. So went through this process, was still running for office, didn't stop because I at least felt that I would be able to use at least the healthcare platform. I mean, I was very fortunate. I was, and I had my own business. I couldn't get fired. I could take time off from work, not get fired. I had health insurance because we have a really good health insurance plan, so I could get the surgery that I needed. So I used that as a platform to really talk about all of the other people and women and Americans who don't have those same opportunities, mostly through no fault of their own. And so that was a wake-up call for me, because at that point I had 2 young kids, and the only thing I was thinking about was I going to be able to live long enough to see them dance at their weddings, right? And so at that point, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was campaigning full time. I was working full time. I was trying to make sure that, I was present for my kids. And everything was just crashing down, right? Very, all of it just seemed like the world was really closing in on me. And so I went ahead and I said, I need therapy. So I enrolled in, I got a therapist. I started talking about the amount of overwhelming stressors that I had, about the fear, like, and unfortunately my diagnosis, I was stage 1. So it was great. I caught it early, thank God. But the fear of what this means, the changes that I had to go through, the last 3 years, I went through 3 surgeries and radiation and a bunch of other stuff, and still raising little people and still serving and still working full time. And so I had to figure out, I don't believe there's work-life balance. I think there's work-life management. And so I had to figure out how I was going to manage all of the different things that were going in my life, because if not, I was already pouring from an empty cup, having nothing left for myself, which meant I wasn't showing up as a full person at work, at home with my husband, at home with my kids, with my friends, family, et cetera. And so I reached out at that point and I was like, you know what? I need someone to help me try and prioritize and process everything that's going on with my fear of dying, and everything that's going on with all these other hats that I've decided to take on by my own choice, and manage so that I could still show up in my life as my best self on any given day in all of the different roles that I wore. So I think that, we don't talk about reaching out, and that we're all struggling. And if you're an entrepreneur, regardless of gender, like, we've all had that breaking point. You're like, when you're at your end of the rope, tie a knot and hold on. But sometimes you just need other supports. And whether that's your friends, your family, a therapist, those are the things that we need to talk about and lift up, and make sure that people feel that it's less stigmatizing, because that's why, in my opinion, God made therapists, because sometimes you just need someone outside of your family to be able to help you give some coping skills and strategies on how to deal with everything that's happening in your life.
Wow. Well, Senator Batch, that is, overwhelm is an understatement of what was going on with your life. So are you 3 years out, 2 or 3 years out now from your diagnosis?
Yeah, 3 years out on recurrence medication. Everybody laughs at me. Well, some of my younger colleagues laugh because I have hot flashes because of my recurrence medication. So I'll be like in menopause for the next 20 years. But I'm like literally just like fanning myself. I was like, y'all joke now, but you're going to be there one day, and you're going to feel really bad that the lava that's rising out of my skin right now, you think it's funny. It's not. And Laura, I walk around with a fan now for that very purpose.
Right?
I'm literally like
I've been
the
doing
old lady in a church fanning myself. And they're like, ma'am, you're not old enough to have menopause, to be in menopause. I was like, it's called cancer. Okay. And they're like, oh, and then they don't want to talk about it. It's like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Olala just put into the chat, it's okay, hot flashes are sexy. All right. Okay, so you know what? I think we need to get some Nabo branded fans, because I too had breast cancer. And so 5 years ago, I just hit my 5-year mark.
Congratulations.
Yay. I'm on my meds for a full 10 years. So yes, I was chemically induced into menopause like overnight, with 5 months of chemo and mastectomies and radiation and clinical trials and these meds that seem to go on and on forever. So I got you right there. And, adding to this conversation a little bit. Oh, and Linda, yes, 6 years breast cancer survivor. Here's the thing for those of us, and I don't know if we have a lot of under 40s.
6 years.
But even beyond that, and this is my little PSA, please, 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 never skip a mammogram. 2, ask for a 3D mammogram.
Yes.
I had never skipped a mammogram. And when mine was diagnosed, I felt the lump under my armpit. And what it was a huge lymph node that had become tumorous. It had already spread into my lymph system. And it was 2 weeks prior to my annual mammogram.
Wow.
So I called my OB. I said, I've got a lump under my armpit. I didn't know if it was like an ingrown hair from shaving, but it felt much deeper. She had me in the very next day. And lo and behold, it was already advanced. And so I had to jump right into all of the things. And so when they did the mammogram, the 2D, I have dents, or I don't have them anymore. I got some new tatas because of my surgery. However, my breasts were very dense, which 40% of women have. Right. And so I had 3 tumors, one of them an inch wide, that you could not see in my dense breast tissue. And so when they did the 3D mammogram, they lit up like Christmas tree lights.
Wow.
And so please, please, please. And if your insurance company does not cover it, spend the extra money. I
worth
guarantee you
saving.
the extra money for a 3D mammogram is cheaper than chemotherapy. And unlike you, Senator Batch, I at the time had not merged with my current company. So my husband had lost his job 6 weeks before I got diagnosed. And we lost our health insurance in that job loss. And so I had bought the cheapest thing I could find on the marketplace. And so in March of this year, it took 5 years to pay off my cancer treatment. And I did have insurance, but my out of pocket was so massive. This is where advocacy for us as women and NABO can help, and families for that matter. We need better health care. And Senator Batch, later on today, I'd love for you to be able to share with us some of the things that are on your platform in your work with the North Carolina legislature. But it is a dreadful thing that we attempted to claim bankruptcy because of my cancer diagnosis. My husband didn't work for 10 months. I had to work throughout my diagnosis. It was, as you can imagine, horrifically life-changing. That is when I took my company, which was 11, and I went into an acquisition because I could not keep all the balls in the air. And so that's when Green Room became a part of Walk West, because I needed help. And so that was the huge line in the sand as an entrepreneur, that I knew I couldn't keep doing all the things plus going through treatment. And so luckily I was able to find a company that aligned very well with us. And it took a good year of deciding if it was the right move for both of us to marry our companies together. And thank goodness 4 years later, it's a beautiful success story. A lot of bumps along the way, but yes, I mean, you can't plan for that stuff, but thank goodness we've come out of it on the other side. But, we had to empty our 401k to pay the bills while I was going through treatment. So now I've got, I'll be the little 82-year-old woman greeting you at Walmart in a number of years, because I don't have a 401k anymore. We emptied it out. So as a small business owner, it's going to take a long time to build that back up.
Right.
So,
right. And I mean, and that's, part of that PSA as well, is that my law partner said, hey, you just turned 39, so go get your mammogram. I was like, I'm not 40 yet. And I have a history of breast cancer in my family. And actually the same month that I got diagnosed, my cousin got diagnosed and had a double mastectomy, right? And so I said, okay. And I went in and it had already started to spread, right? So like, thank God I went in then instead of waiting until months later when I turned 40. And the 3D mammogram, to your point, that's where it is. When I had, breast tissue, I was like, it was very dense. So now, Sharon and I have, really perky breasts and hot flashes. I'm not recommending cancer to do that.
Tom, close your ears.
No bras, perky breasts. But don't
here's the thing, Tom, 2 of the men on my street, I live in a neighborhood with 7 houses on each side. 2 men in my street both had breast cancer.
Yeah.
So this is universal. This is, yes, it happens way more frequently for women, but men have to be aware of this as well. Well, thank you all for your vulnerability with sharing some of those personal things, but this is how we learn connection and learning from others before us, so that we hopefully can take a lesson from it. Now, with that, such incredible stories, what is the one word that you would use to describe how you see yourself now, as opposed to when you started your business? And Sharon, I'd like to start with you.
Sagacious. Sagacious. I am full of wisdom.
That's an SAT word, Sharon.
Yeah.
Will you spell it for us?
Sage, a wise man is sage, is a sage. So it comes from sage, meaning wisdom, to sagacious, full of wisdom. SAGACIOUS, sagacious.
I love it. How long have you been an entrepreneur, Sharon?
2006. So I'd say 15 years. Yes.
That's a lot of sagacious.
A lot of sagacious.
That's great. Laura, what would be the one word to describe how you see yourself now, as opposed to when you were leaving corporate America to start team CFO?
Realistic. I left with no wisdom, okay, no perspective. All the research that I prided myself on doing was, not worthless. I'm glad I did it, but it's different when you live it. So I'm a lot more realistic now. And I want to put in a plug. Thank you, Sharon and Senator Batch and Sharon for sharing the stories, Canola, about your healthcare. The number one reason for bankruptcy across the board in America, up until last year's an aberration, is healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's I want to say that many times breast cancer is not considered the terminal illness it was. It's very recoverable. People's high survival rate. It still bankrupts families. It still does. And financially, if you can't get out from under, and you guys are like success stories, right? There are other people who aren't. One of the reasons why NABO's really picked up our advocacy efforts is we're finding that our voice is much, much larger, especially on a consolidated basis. And I'm sure Senator Batch knows this and is preaching it to the choir all the time. So we're here for you when you need us, just call the troops. But we need to show up all the time, right? And what I tell my clients, you can't just do finances at the end of the month or at tax time or whatever. You got to do things on a continual basis. And so we really need to step up that messaging and that action. It makes sense as business owners. It's going to reduce costs for us. Financially, it just makes sense for everybody. So I got to put that plug in there. I'm sorry, Sharon, I had to insert that, but realistic.
Well, that's all a part of being realistic, right? I mean, yeah, if I don't check QuickBooks but once a quarter to make my estimated quarterly, it's like a mountain instead of a molehill because I put it off.
You're not using the information that you have to help you build your business. That's what I tell people, financially or anything else. Life is tough out there. It's tough to be a business owner, right? So you've got to use all the tools at your disposal, because you know what? If you aren't, somebody else is. So the thing that you hate the most, and usually it's finances, I totally get it, but the thing that you hate the most, try to make it your friend. You might never be great at it. You might never go, oh, I get to do my finances this time. But if you really make it a priority, I promise you, if you make your priority for 1 year, you will learn how to use it to your benefit, and you are that much farther ahead than your competitors who don't. Back to you,
Great
Sharon.
advice. Thank you. Senator Batch, what would be your one word?
Probably balanced. I think when I first started out, we were very much like Sharon was like, it's eat what you kill in this world. So if someone came in and said, hey, I've got this legal problem, we knew that if we did not work and we work on billable hours, we weren't going to eat. So I took everything. I worked all the time. I didn't have an off button. I've put more on my plate, but I figured out a way to manage that much better than I did when we first started out trying to figure out how to grow the business. And I think over the 15 years of being in private practice and owning a business, I've been able to take those lessons and those mistakes. And now it's put me in a much more balanced place than I was when I first started.
That's great. And I like what you said, where there is no work-life balance, it's work-life management. And finding, the little parts and pieces of each day to do a little self-care, hopefully, so that you don't, overwhelm. That constant state of overwhelm can be crushing. I would say that if it's okay that I give you my one word, but it would be resilience. And Sharon, like you, I do a lot of speaking, and I'm a professional speaker, and I train other people how to do speaking, and then I help write speeches and that sort of thing. But resilience is something that I think all of us have heard that term a lot in 2020, both personal resilience and business resilience. And then you think about kids. I had a senior in high school last year. All the fun parts of being a senior in high school were thrown out the window. He missed all of it. And then I have a little guy, and it's just so odd. Can you imagine being a prepubescent or a teenager going through this time with not having the life skills that you learn as we get seasoned and age? So our kids have some built-in resilience this past year that I think is a wonderful thing. Out of the struggle comes some sunshine there, and that knowing the more that we get challenged, the more confident we become at the next challenge, knowing, well, we made it through 2020, whether you got a PPP loan or you didn't have to lay off people or you didn't have to lay off as many people as you expected. All of those small wins feed into that resilience zone that you have to create for yourself. And yes, I had the breast cancer thing 5 years ago, but really what was the huge career shift for me was when I worked for NBC, which was owned by GE, Laura. And
sorry.
No, for me, I have to tell you, for me, my GE story was wonderful. So we had the Cadillac of health insurance. When I was there. And in 2005, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, and General Electric literally held my family in their heart for 8 months while I left. I mean, I literally disappeared to go take care of her. I thought I was going to have to do the FMLA deal. My news director came out to the North Carolina Children's Hospital, sat across from me and said, "You take care of Macy and we'll take care of you." Wow. And they did. They never missed a paycheck. The community of my team, the meal trains and all the things. And then we lost my daughter, and they were the first ones at my house when she passed. They told me to take as much time off as you need. They were incredible, and they never stopped a paycheck. And that'd be hard. That would be hard to find nowadays, a company to be able to do that. But also when I look at the healthcare bills, my daughter's bills were $500,000. My out of pocket, $500 total.
Yeah.
And so, I had but after she passed, I did go back and I tried to do the news for about another 8 months, and I realized I was a shell of myself. And so I walked away to start my own business. And one of the first speaking engagements I had was with NABO all those years ago. And so the resilience that I continue to learn, and I think that it is a boundless, infinite amount that each of us can learn to be more resilient, and then to pass and share those lessons to those around us, in particular to our NABO sisters and to our families. So thank you for letting me share that piece. I'd like for you all to look back at your younger self and think about, what is one word that you would tell a young entrepreneur that has been in business for 1 to 3 years? What one word would you give to that person? And maybe it might be looking back at, maybe your own self, but particularly a young entrepreneur that you know now. What would you tell them? And let me start with you, Senator Batch.
I would say grace. I think we don't give ourselves enough grace and learn from our mistakes, and just know that we're human, especially as women. We want to, and women who go into business, we are typically type A, and we have issues with perfection, and knowing that we try all the time. And so we're constantly devaluing and demeaning ourselves with our own critical self-talk. And so I would tell all of the young entrepreneurs, and frankly, all of us here, we just have to give ourselves grace every single day, and just know that if you show up every day and you give it your best, then that's all that we can ask for you to do. Because I think that it's very hard when there's a rough month and you may not be able to pay the bills. You're trying to figure out what happens, and you're going to hit hiccups as you are growing your business. That is normal, and that you should just, it doesn't mean you throw in the towel. It just means that you got to give yourself, time to heal, walk it off, and know that it's going to be okay. So I think grace is by far the most important looking back.
I love that. Sharon, what would be your one word that you would share with a young entrepreneur just getting started?
My word is steady. STUDY, steady. Because when you're starting your new business, it's like falling in love. And everything is beautiful. Everything's going to be wonderful. You don't pay a lot of attention to the small stuff because I'm going to do this. It's going to be wonderful, make a lot of money, change the world. Without knowing anything about business, without knowing anything about how to control your finances, without knowing anything about marketing, you have to study all the aspects of business in order to run a business. And don't just go fly by night like I did. It's going to be wonderful. Study is my word, Sharon.
Sharon, I'd love to know, do you carve out, and like in your busy calendar, do you carve out any times during the week where you're going to just read or think? And not doing this after hours in bed. I'm talking about in the workday for that studying, that continuous learning.
Well, I did it after I realized that's what I should have been doing. Because now I consider myself plateaued and I'm just coasting now, especially since coronavirus, my speaking business is on hold for right now. So right now I'm just living the dream. But when I realized, when I still had my business actively and realized that I needed to learn more, I learned a lot from my business manager, from my brand manager, from my coach. They would teach me and tell me what I should be reading and what I should be following up on to really become a business woman. Being in corporate America, I'm told these are your metrics. This is what we have to do. My business was a $4 million business at IBM because I was managing a department within IBM, $4 million. But when I started my own business, I didn't take anything from that to help me get my own business and be smart. I didn't study. I figured I knew it. I had a $4 million business. I didn't study. I should have learned how to study. So I did then, Sharon, after I realized the mistakes that I'd made.
I love that. Laura, what about you?
I've got 3 words: trust your gut. So that I think that all of us have been on the other side. Your business is operating, it's running. We've all had the experience where we've learned that our gut usually is fairly, it's in touch. You know, it has a handle on things. Maybe you can't quantify it yet. Maybe you can't assign a metric. Maybe you can't even articulate it. But your gut, if after about 1 year to 3 years, it's probably pretty decent. And so if your gut's telling you to do something, usually it's, you know, okay, holding back is not one of our big straight, or, you know, we don't have a problem with that. Usually it's the other way. When something's telling you, okay, this is not, you know, my gut is telling me something, whether it's a business relationship, a deal, an acquisition, a client, go deeper into that. So all of the really successful business owners that I've worked with, it's kind of interesting because they bring us in, we're financial, we're in the systems, accounting, you know, general ledger, financial risk management reports. The really, really good business owners, actually their gut is telling them where their business is. And the numbers are really a validation and a deeper dive of the specifics. If I meet a business owner who's got a total disconnect, I know they're not going to be in business very long. So that gut characteristic, talent, trait, skill, I don't know what it is something I think you need to hone. And actually, those are the same business owners that would sometimes come to us. They go, okay, I don't have the numbers yet, but this is what I do. My gut's telling me. And I used to go, oh, you know, we can't do that. We have to study it and get the financials. And when they were good, you know, I realized that we're the trailing indicators. We were the validators. We were the things to keep the bumper. Their idea and their gut was the best. I wish I had started to develop that gut inclination, understanding what it was saying, how to validate it way before, like you, Sharon, right? If I'd started earlier, I'd be a lot farther along. But don't let anybody discount your gut feel. And I think many times as women, sorry, Thomas, that we are told, you know, that's being emotional, right? You don't trust your gut. It's being emotional. It's, you know, to tamp that down. And particularly in the financial field, I got to say, we're all about the numbers. We're told, you know, there's no there is no room for emotion or gut analysis in the financial world. I'm going to tell you, I think that's not true from my experience. And the really good ones, the ones that cut off time, the ones that really are successful, have learned to trust your gut. Sorry, that was 3.
No,
Trust
I
your
love
gut.
that's wonderful. And you know, as a new entrepreneur, oftentimes you don't have confidence yet, so you think you shouldn't trust your gut.
Yeah.
And as Sharon said, you know, oh, you're so in love with this idea of being an entrepreneur, and so quieting down to listen to what the gut is saying is so important. So
And learning how to validate it. Learning how to validate it.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, and before I ask this next question, for those in attendance, we'd love to hear your questions. So if you can start adding them to the chat, I'll be asking our panelists your questions coming up in a few minutes. So please do add your questions there. Now, for our last planned question here, what one word would you give to a more seasoned entrepreneur who is still trying to figure out and ride through the COVID storm and the pandemic? I think there's a lot of companies that are global now, and not every place else is doing as well as the US at the moment. And it could be many months or 2022 or beyond before they can catch up to where we are. So what would be that one piece of advice for the seasoned entrepreneur? And Sharon, I'd like to start with you.
My word is budget. We were talking before the meeting started about, we see stuff that we want, and so we spend money on it. The question now is, do you need it? Because you don't know how long you're going to be in this hole. If you're in a hole, you've got to watch the dollars. Budget so that you're spending your money wisely. Budget is my word, Sharon.
Okay. All right. Senator Batch.
I'd say pivot. And that's because there are a lot of businesses that had to shut down, right, through no fault of their own because of the executive orders. And some of the businesses that have thrived and have done well have figured out, if they were a restaurant, how they pivoted to either do online orders, how they've been doing catering, right? So like Ashley Christensen, who owns tons of restaurants downtown, is now doing family meals. So,
Yeah.
And you just pick them up and she's cooking for you in your house. It's a genius idea. And so if you're in a field where you can figure out how to pivot to sustain this wave, because it was going to be resilience, but you already spoke so wonderfully about that, Sharon, that I think that now pivoting in this economy and in this market is really important for the sustainability of your business.
I love that. You know, we had a client early on last year. You all might, those of you in North Carolina, Laura, you wouldn't have known this company, but the Great Outdoor Provision Company is like a local version of REI. The, you know, the really cool outdoor camping gear and all that kind of stuff. So we have a local North Carolina born company, Great Outdoor Provision Company. They have 9 locations across the state. They have storefronts and they did not have e-commerce, none. So when all the stores, when everything shut down last March, they literally went to 0 revenue. And so luckily we already had been hosting their website. They came to us and we very quickly, probably one of the fastest times we've ever been able to build out an e-commerce platform. We did it fast and furious so that they could continue to sell their wares. Now, eventually, I guess the stores started opening back up in, June or July. However, we're the Amazon consumers. We're used to sitting there buying stuff on our phones, and that's never going to go away. So this is probably something that Great Outdoor Provision Company should have been thinking about anyway, but the pandemic forced them into that. And as a result, they now have a better business going forward because they pivoted and they can have in-store and online. So that was an example of something that the pivot really worked. Yes. Laura, would like to hear from you, your one word for the seasoned entrepreneur.
First on Great Provisions, actually, I've seen them, and because we're all ordering camping stuff, right? And so they had some, I think they were referenced in Instagram, and that they've had like cool products that have been promoted by other people. So it's working out here in REI land.
Good. Yeah, they have influencer brand alignments. That's great. Yeah.
So it's working. Okay, because I had no idea I'd meet you and talk to you about this, but they have cool stuff. So I'm gonna actually piggyback on what Senator Batch talked about as far as pivoting. Mine is back to basics. So in a way, I tell business owners, you know what, you've built a business before. You had to figure it out. You had to know what was of value, what service or product was of value to your customer. You knew how much they would pay for it. You knew how they wanted to experience it. We just have to do that again. Right? Because as you said, it's a totally different world. The good thing about it is if you had done your work the first time and you just didn't luck into it, and some people do, you already have the skill sets and the experience to do this again, only faster, cheaper, easier, and you've got an infrastructure built out. So it's changing your mindset to saying, get back to basics. Like day one of your business, it's always, what's my product or my service, right? Who's my customer? What are they willing to pay for it? And how do I get it to them? And once you make it, it's actually something you should be doing all the time, frankly. But like, let's say you haven't done it and thought about it for a while. As business owners, we feel comfort because if you're here right now, you survive, you've already been through that process at least once, you can do it again, only you're going to be faster, smarter, and make more money at it. Back to basics. I have problems with one words. Have you noticed? I always have three. So.
But I, wisdom sedacious wisdom comes in more than one word sometimes. Again, I'd love for you all in attendance or even the panelists, if you have some questions, please add them to the chat. But at this point, I would love, Senator Batch, we'd like to hear a little bit more about your work in the North Carolina General Assembly and some of the positions that you're taking and some of your goals in your office, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Yeah, sure. So, I think we talked about a lot of the challenges that small business owners face, and being one myself, having to, nobody appreciates and understands, especially employees, what it feels like to have to meet payroll every 2 weeks or every month or however often it is, right? We're all sitting there on certain months. I'm like, oh, we're good. And other months, I'm like, well, when the pandemic started, we as law partners, we didn't take any money. We wanted to keep our staff employed. So we did not take draws for a period of time so that they could go ahead and stay employed and we could still pay for benefits. So one of the things that I think the COVID pandemic has definitely shown, and we've known this because we've been in businesses, have had employees, have had the struggles that we've talked about, is that there are huge chasms that we have that are in existing policy and just by law that are really making it difficult for small businesses to particularly compete with some of the larger businesses and corporations, right? We can't, I'm not IBM. I can't give you a 6-month sabbatical and pay you for half of it. I can't give my employees as much as I want. I can't give them 3 months of paid leave because our office is so small that when they leave from maternity leave, we pay them, but we can't pay them 3 months because we just can't afford it. So there are certain things that I've really tried to prioritize where it would help not only families, and in particular working families, but it helps small businesses and businesses alike. And so I've worked a lot in the paid leave space. I had the great fortune of being able to testify in a subcommittee in Congress in 2019 about paid leave and FMLA, and making sure that it's not just for those businesses that have 50 employees, but for our businesses who are not as large, who need their employees to be able to take time off and are protected so that they can take care of themselves or their children or their parents, or the person who frankly is closer to them than family, but by law cannot actually take time to take care of their best friend. And so I've worked a lot in the paid leave space to try and come up with a statewide paid leave program. We've gotten some pushback saying that, especially the bigger Chamber of Commerce has concerns that it's going to cost too much for businesses. And my response is, well, one, it's $2 per paycheck for the employee and $2 for the employee. So I would rather $54 as an employer to be able to give my employees up to 12 weeks of paid leave in an insurance system, because that's a hell of a lot cheaper than when I have to deal with turnover every single time someone gets pregnant, has to leave, goes to a different place, or is out, and I'm trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So I think in the paid leave space, we really need to do a lot of work. It gets back to what we're dealing with working moms in particular. Since COVID, 3 million women have left the workforce. And there are studies that said that we are actually setting back female entrepreneurs who their businesses in particular have been lost and have not come back. So we're setting ourselves back 2 generations of women in the workplace right now, just by making sure. And we were already, with the pay gap, we were already behind. And so now it's even worse for businesses because most of the childbearing came to the women who had to leave the workforce through no fault of their own, right? And there weren't supportive places and workplaces that allowed for people to work from home with their kids. And there's some jobs that you can't do that. You can't stock the grocery stores from your house, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you are someone that's a frontline worker, you can't stay at home. If you have a print shop, you got to be there to print things. So we have to figure out a way in which we allow for small businesses to thrive. Another one of the ways, and it's very expensive to provide health insurance. You know, we have a small office of 8 people, and 6 people are on the plan, and we spend $5,800 a month for 6 people, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. We do it at a cost, we think that the benefits outweigh the cost because we have, you know, people here, they'll stay because they don't have to worry about health insurance. And it's a Cadillac plan. You know, out-of-pocket expenses $1,000. So we pay for it, but we do think that that's a benefit. Other businesses can't do that or choose not to do that. I think we need to make sure that we're dealing with the health insurance industry to ensure that we're making it possible for association health plans that actually have the ACA requirements, right? Last year, there was a big debate about association healthcare plans. So realtors and other groups who are one solo shop could not actually pool together and get a really good price and have, you know, collective bargaining like you would have for IBM. But they did not include certain ACA provisions, including maternity. And I couldn't in good conscience vote for a bill that said that a company could choose an association plan with all realtors that are predominantly women may not have maternity coverage when we know that's the most expensive. So I was like, no, I'm not signing on to this. And I got a lot of flack, but I was like, I'm not going to give people junk plans when the most expensive event in a woman's life is going to be labor and delivery. And I'm just not signing up for that, right? And so, you know, I've sponsored an association healthcare plan that includes all of the ACA provisions that covers maternity as well. And we're working on just other creative ways in which we can expand really affordable healthcare plans for all businesses, because right now that's not an option, right? And it's just very difficult for us, especially small businesses. And I come with a small business frame. I'm not at the IBM and the GE space, but for us to be able to provide and compete with some of our larger partners, we have to have the talent. And the only way that we're going to have that talent is by making sure that we can provide the same type of benefits and work, in work environment that they can. And so those are some of the things that we've really been working on and trying to ensure that we come up with ways in which we can get the female businesses who have closed a way that we can try and get them jump started and prioritize making sure that we can, PPP loans were a hot mess, right? Some of these big corporations got it, smaller businesses who really needed it didn't. And so trying to deal with, like, we know all of the problems now, and the likelihood of us having a pandemic to this, extent is probably low, but we're going to have something else that's happened. But we've been able to see the problems within the system, and we just need to know, like, we need to learn to take those lessons and don't repeat them, and figure out ways where we can actually bolster and support the small businesses, which we know employ the vast majority of Americans and certainly North Carolinians, and make sure that it's easier for us to be able to retain the talent that we need to grow our own businesses in a way in which it gives our employees a reason to stay and doesn't actually, financially strap us as owners in the process. So that's some of the stuff that I'm working on.
I appreciate that work so much. And I wanted to ask about a couple of things that are very specific, oftentimes to women, but it's all parents and families at this point. In the state of North Carolina, I know that there are only 14 states in the country that mandate coverage for fertility care. And here's the thing, the numbers continue to bear. The fertility rate in the US is plummeting, and the pandemic has only compounded that. And people may be thinking, well, we can't afford big families. Well, but if we're not even having 2 kids, we don't have a replacement population that's going to be in working to help pay for my Social Security, 25 years from now. So, but then you start thinking, okay, so women, we're in that awkward position where, you want to do well in your career. And by the time, you're finally establishing yourself in your career, you're at a point where, oh my goodness, I'm in my mid-30s and I haven't had my first kid yet. Do I step away and have my kid, or how do I lean into now this new VP position that I've gotten? Oh my gosh, I'm in this really awkward timing. And so, women have been penalized forever because you step away to have a child and then you go back in, and then childcare is so ridiculously expensive. Or you put off having children so long, you're now 39 trying to get pregnant. Well, you have a 5% chance of getting pregnant on your own at age 39. Yep. So then, like me, after we lost our Macy, I was 38 and we wanted to try and have another child. So I went into debt, got one of those healthcare, the care doc, whatever, because North Carolina does not mandate fertility coverage. I had to, take $10,000 out to pay for medicine to try and get pregnant. And we joked, luckily, God willing, I had the miracle of having another child, and it took me 4 years to pay him off. Yeah. It sounds ridiculous. But I used to joke that, what, are they going to come and repossess him if I stop paying? Like, seriously, are they going to come and take my kid away? Of course, I would have taken a hit on my credit, on my credit. But it just, I wonder about that particular thing in healthcare. And as a nation, we're going to have to look at that moving forward. And then I wonder also, Senator Hatch, have you heard about the bereavement policies that they're trying to move through Congress? And I don't know if any of you all in attendance today have heard this, but they are trying to reach out where there would be an ability for us to get paid leave for bereavement. And that's including everything from, losing a family member because of whatever it is, COVID or whatever it might be, or they're now saying, miscarriage, stillbirth, child loss, whatever it might be. Have any discussions filtered down to the state level, Senator Hatch, about either infertility or bereavement leave?
Yeah, and all of you guys, please call me Sydney. There are too many peacocks in the General Assembly. I'm not one of them, so okay. We don't need titles. So I would say, it's the federal government, the Fed, at least Congress is doing a much better job of talking about this. So when I went and was testifying about what North Carolina was doing and was talking about FMLA, we talked about bereavement, right? Because I've had a friend who lost her child at birth, and she had to fight with her company because it wasn't covered. Because it's not maternity, right? And so they're like, well, do you get paid time off? And can you take FMLA? And so that happens. That's a reality that people are dealing with. I have 3 friends who were 40 and 41 when they had their first kids. These are people that I went to law school and college with. And because women are waiting longer, they're waiting longer to get married. They're waiting longer because of their careers. And so all of this goes into, men, they can have children until the day they die. But we don't. And we have to figure out how we navigate just the fact that biology is different for us and what is important. And so the federal government is doing a much better job. It is pulling teeth, frankly. And I don't know if this is something that NAWBO is interested in doing, but it has been very hard to actually even get them to sit down and have a conversation, even just about paid leave. We don't even have sick leave. We don't have unpaid sick leave. 12% of North Carolinians do not have paid leave in the state. 12%. That's the 12% of them. So my office, some of y'all's businesses, that's it. So we have 88% of North Carolinians who cannot take leave that is paid, sick or otherwise. And that's the frustration that I have in that building, is that the voices are not being elevated. And unfortunately, the chamber does lots of great things, but they also stand in the way of making progress, right? Of saying, why are you acting like businesses don't care about their employees, and that they're going to be so financially strapped, and that there's some people within that space who just will not even come to the table and have a conversation on how we do that. So I think it would be amazing, from a legislative lens of getting stakeholders and other people and other entities that the General Assembly and leadership there would not otherwise care about these issues of paid leave, about making sure that fertility treatments are actually one of the things that are going to be required in healthcare plans, and putting pressure on companies in that space. And so I'm more than happy. Anybody wants to talk about that? and wants to do it, you can join me, and I will figure out ways in which we can go ahead and actually put a much more powerful narrative behind it and say, we are business owners. We're women who care about our employees. And we are contributing and paying taxes in the state, and we are demanding that you do better by us and by our employees. But there's been a void of that. And I think that COVID has actually shown that we really need it much more so. But it's not gotten, I think, the attention that it certainly deserves, because my mantra is a rising, the whole adage of a rising tide lifts all boats. And if we help those that have the least, everyone else will be doing much better, especially for working families.
Amen. Amen.
And Sydney, thank you so much for saying that. I want to contribute something from more of a national perspective on that. So I know that as a national organization, we have to represent all aspects, and it's clearly we're women, but there's a full spectrum. But one of the things that we've been able to do is help business, because we're all business owners, understand the economics of some of the things that you're talking about, and particularly those arguments really attract my ear because I'm a financial person. And I found that I've made it, when we're able to articulate and we go to DC and we talk to the staffers and tell them, this is not just a feel-good women's thing kind of thing. This is an economic for a lot of things that you mentioned, the turnover, the replacement, the legacy knowledge, the workarounds, we can make a very viable financial argument, not only on the micro level of the individual businesses, but at a national level and a investment level, to sharing your point, right? We just have to decide that we want to do it. And as women, I think we can thread that needle, frankly. And it is hard, but we're in one of the very few organizations that actually speak strongly from both sides, being a woman and frankly being business owners and partaking and benefiting from the capital system. We have to see what are the commonalities that we can shoot for. And it is possible, because I come from the state of California. We've been dealing with insurance not well, but this conversation has been, we've been having it for a long time. And one of the ways we were able to move through a lot of the things that we wanted to was when we decided to step up as women business owners and be able to speak to both sides, to our fellow associates on the chamber, who never really did in public come out and whole hog, but they recognize the economic arguments of it, right? And as all politics, you have that uneasy compromise. Nobody got what they want, but it was better than what we had before. I think that NAWBO, we do really good on businesses, we do good on relationships, and we need to get back to our roots, because we started out as an advocacy organization. It's not just advocacy at the federal level, although it's fun and everything's like cool. I like to travel there. But advocacy is really making sure at home your roads are taken care of, your businesses are taken care of. And the stronger our local chapters are, you have to be careful, but the stronger we are in advocacy and making sure we're threading that needle, it's stronger. The whole national organization is stronger too, right? So I just really want to encourage you guys, because North Carolina is a state that it's making a lot of progress, right? And it's really a front leader in a lot of things that are going on in the nation. And I think it's really important that y'all who live there are giving back, frankly, and taking responsibility by stepping up to these things. Because I know a lot of times I'd get these calls and they're like, Laura, can you come down when we're traveling, right? I'd have to fly up to Sacramento. And I go, I don't have time. I have clients that I have to service. And I think that it's just part of the taxes we pay, what I call personal time taxes that we pay. And I don't care how big or how small you are, that if you are doing business in your state or locality, if you understand that we have to carve out a little bit of time to support that, not only in time, but frankly, my other big pitch is I think women, we need to step up in political donations too. I know this is probably not the area, but we do very well philanthropically, but we do not support our elected officials at the same rate. And until we do so, It's like any other business. Why would you expect a business that you don't invest money in to have a return for you from a personal perspective? And unfortunately, I think, well, this is a Laura Yamanaka perspective and not a novel perspective, okay, national. So I just want to make sure, God, Emily, I'm in trouble 2 days in a row, right? I mean, we were in a call yesterday and never mind. I don't want to go there. I don't want to, but like, we tell it like we see it, right? But so I think that I'm so impressed with the panel and the range of conversation that we had before and during the, I just think you guys are killing it, and you got to go out and kill it more, okay?
I love that perspective, Laura. And I think that that's something that for me as still, a 15-year entrepreneur, but realizing the huge gaps that I have in my own learning. And as my CEO likes to say, he's a competitive learner. There's no reason that I can't spend more time understanding the financial part of the business.
Yep.
And that's what, we're in a capitalist economy. That's what makes the world turn in the United States of America. And so if I understand the financials of it better, then that also helps inform me how, like you said, political donations. If women had more, it is all about the money. If the power is in our wallets.
It's once we, I know, I'll speak for myself. I had a distaste for it, right? Because the perspectives and, those people, I am so sorry, Senator Badger, right? The politicians, I didn't understand.
I feel the same way, and I'm down there. Let me be very clear. You don't have to apologize. For people on this call that already know me, they know how I feel about some of the nonsense. And again, like I say, there are too many peacocks in the General Assembly and not enough peahens. There are not enough people who want to do the work and not are worried about taking the credit. And I'm a peahen, and you won't see me over there trying to have some press conference with all the lights because I don't care, because we need to get stuff done. And we waste so much time with a bunch of peacocks who want to be there and tell you all the different ways in which they are the most amazing people on earth.
And we need to support the people like you. So you have my email, call me up. And when the season comes, although I'm sure it's always the season, call me up and I'll write a check. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm doing that. Well, one, I'm impressed. If you were an idiot, I wouldn't have let me make that. But I also wanted to model that behavior, right? That it's important what we do. It's important what we do. And sometimes it's important to I said, focus on your local area because you live there and that's the biggest difference. But sometimes when we can afford that reach out there, do that too, right? So if that's the one thing you remember about, this perspective, right? Growing your business and all those kinds of things, there's a lot of material out there. You can read it, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that probably you guys don't already know. But what I don't think there's out there is the push to have our people step up, take our rightful place as far as giving input to how our governments run, right? And making sure women, okay, and frankly, people of color. We just got to make sure it's representational. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about swinging back and forth. Let's get that dialogue going, and then let's do something about it.
I tell people all the time, a good government looks like the people it serves. And so if you care about that, then you should care about investing in people that, of course, have your views, but also are going to bring perspectives to the table. And we have a General Assembly here that is 25% women and 24% people of color, right? So it's not.
Now, that's pretty good compared to some places,
and
right?
It is, and we are killing it with regards to apparently women in other places. But
yeah,
to your point, and also with women who are running for office, women get less donations than men, and we also primarily get them from women and not the same amount as men. And then women of color are at the bottom of the list with regards to all of the studies and research that it's done. So, I appreciate that I've been talking about that, because at the end of the day, we as women bring a very different perspective. And going back to what Sharon said, we know it. We were paying $2,300 a month in childcare at one point for my 2 kids. So, what I did as a small business owner? I didn't invest in 401k. For these 6 years that I was paying $2,300 for my kids to be in the best daycare. So $150,000 later, they have a really good preschool education, but I don't have retirement, right? So those are some of the things that we bring as a different perspective, especially with age. I mean, a lot of people in the General Assembly, because you can't live off $14,000, are retired, right? So I bring a very different perspective as a young parent who actually is just off the cusp of paying for childcare, whereas other people aren't. And that's what makes a fantastic government, is we all have a different perspective, regardless of your political affiliation, where we can hammer out a deal. And if everyone walks away from the table with getting something and giving something, that's like the best piece of legislation that we can have.
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
ladies, I hate to cut us off because this is fantastic conversation. So many learnings and insights from all of you. Laura, and I keep wanting to say Senator Batch, but I love saying it. And Sharon, thank you so much for your time and your expertise and your wisdom that you have shared with all of us today. Thank you so, so much. And I think I'm passing it back to Carnella. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
This has been absolutely wonderful. Can we give the panel and Sharon a round of applause? Because I'm telling you, I'm getting messages that you don't see where the people in the audience are saying, the ladies in the audience and Tom, everybody is saying how wonderful this is to end our last one for this board term on such the words that need to be said, because that's my preacher hat that's coming out right there. So this is the message that was needed on this last workshop. And so we're absolutely grateful. Yes, we talked about a whole lot of things, but it was relevant for what is needed right now and for the time that we're in. And so thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Sharon Hill. Thank you, Sidney Batch, Senator Sidney Batch. We have a lot of work to do.
Me too.
I'll put my political hat on now for a little while. We have a lot of work to do. And Senator, call upon us. That's what we're here for. Anything that we can do locally, and we know we have work nationally for NABO National that we have to do. Political advocacy work we have to do, and it takes each and every one of us. Let's get on board. If you have not gone downtown, if you have not been to the legislative building, you need to go and spend some time. I have walked the halls many a times fighting for interior designers. I have walked the halls fighting for business owners. I will continue to do that. I have worked on campaigns. I'm telling you, we cannot sit back, especially now. This is a critical time in our lives and we need everybody. So thank you. Thank you. This has been my favorite word, and I get to say it one more time. This has been a phenomenal panel, and we give you all our love and our hearts for taking the time for joining us today and spending time on this wonderful opportunity and conversation. Thank you. I'm gonna just wrap up and say you have gifts that's on the way to our panelists. So make sure that you email back we'll figure out which way, and I'll send you a separate email, because sometimes we do it electronically and then sometimes you actually get a physical gift, but they're both physical. You understand what I'm saying? About it when I say that. But we will take care of you because we want to let you know we truly appreciate you. Last thing, for board members, please hang on. We have our annual meeting. We will close out that for all members. Please hang on and we will close out. If there are no other questions, no other things to add, thank you again, and everyone have a blessed rest of the week, rest of the month, and rest of the year. We will rise above everything that seems to be hitting us right now, and we know that we'll come out smiling, and we're going to help each other. Take care.
Thank you.
Hope to see you someday in person, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies.